I used to think snowmen were harmless. I was wrong. The first heavy snowfall of December blanketed our small town, turning it into a silent, white world. My siblings, Emily, Sarah, and Michael, and I couldn't resist the allure of the fresh snow. Mom filled the house with the comforting aroma of baking cookies, while Dad was engrossed in his work upstairs. "Let's build a snowman," Sarah exclaimed, her eyes gleaming. We bundled up and ventured into the backyard. The air was crisp, each breath a puff of mist. Together, we rolled snow into 3 large spheres, stacking them to form the classic figure of a snowman. "He needs a hat," Michael said, scanning the yard. "I'll check by the shed," I offered. As I approached the old shed, faint footprints caught my eye. Small, indistinct, leading right to the door. Odd, since we hadn't been back here since summer. Inside, amid cobwebs and forgotten tools, something dark rested on a shelf. A black top hat adorned with intricate silver symbols that seemed to shift under the dim light. As I picked it up, a faint vibration pulsed through my fingers. A whisper, so soft I thought I imagined it, brushed against my ear. At last. A shiver ran down my spine. "Guys, look what I found," I called out, holding up the hat. Michael grabbed it eagerly. "This is perfect." "Wait, maybe we shouldn't use that," I protested, unease growing. But he was already placing it atop the snowman's head. "We'll call him Frosty," Emily cheered. As the hat settled into place, a sharp, icy breeze whipped around us, biting through our coats. "Did you feel that?" I asked. They shrugged, but as we turned to go inside, I glanced back. Frosty's coal eyes seemed to follow us, his grin a little too wide. That night, sleep evaded me. Around midnight, faint crunching sounds drifted from outside, footsteps on fresh snow. I peered through my window. Frosty stood closer to the house, his stick arms raised slightly as if beckoning. Tiny footprints trailed from his base toward the shadowy woods. My breath caught. "It's just a trick of the light," I whispered, retreating to my bed. But the unnatural cold that night seeped deep into my bones. At breakfast, unease gnawed at me. "Did Frosty move last night?" I asked. Michael smirked. "Maybe he went for a walk." Emily hummed an eerie melody that sent a chill through me. "What's that song?" I inquired. She paused, spoon hovering above her cereal. "I don't know. It just came to me." Sarah sat huddled in her chair, wrapped in a thick sweater. Despite the fireplace crackling nearby, she shivered. "Are you still cold?" Mom asked, concern in her voice. Sarah nodded. "It's freezing," she whispered, teeth chattering. Mom felt her forehead. "You don't have a fever." As she stared out the window, Sarah murmured, "I can hear them playing." "Who?" I asked. She gazed into the distance. "The children in the snow. They're calling me to join." Sarah had always been the quiet one, sometimes feeling left out when Michael and Emily played without her. The thought of her seeking companionship made my stomach twist. Later, I found Michael sitting at the dining table, hunched over a notebook, scribbling intently. "What are you drawing?" I asked, approaching him. He covered the page quickly. "Nothing," he muttered. Gently, I pulled the notebook toward me. The pages were filled with intricate patterns, the same shifting symbols from the hat. "Why are you drawing these?" I asked, heart pounding. He blinked, confusion flickering across his face. I just wanted to make something special, something that Dad would notice." Michael had been struggling to get Dad's attention lately, feeling overshadowed by his work. An icy dread settled in my stomach. Driven by a need for answers, I returned to the shed. The strange footprints had vanished, but inside, behind a loose floorboard, I discovered an old leather-bound journal. The pages were brittle, filled with faded ink and haunting sketches. One drawing made my blood run cold, A rough, sinister depiction of Frosty, complete with the hat and its shifting symbols. His grin stretched unnaturally wide, eyes empty voids. A passage stood out. December 1902. They took my little Sarah into the snow. I can still hear her laughter in the wind, calling for me to join her. The hat of winter's breath binds the souls of the innocent. It lures the young with promises of eternal play, but traps them in endless cold. Many have tried to destroy it. All have failed. Even fire cannot destroy the hat. It always finds its way back. Fire can banish its power temporarily, but only until the next snowfall. Beware its allure. My hands trembled. The name Sarah leapt out at me, a chilling coincidence. I had to show Dad. I found him in the hallway. "Dad, you need to see this," I urged, thrusting the journal toward him. He skimmed the pages, brow furrowing. "It's just a story, Karen. You're letting your imagination get the better of you. But Michael and Sarah, they're not themselves." He hesitated, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "I admit they've been acting oddly, but it's probably just the winter blues. Don't worry. Please, we have to do something." He sighed. "Tell you what, we'll keep an eye on them, but don't let this spook you too much, okay?" Feeling only slightly reassured, I retreated to my room. That night, the whispers began, a soft chorus seeping from the walls. "Karen, join us." I pulled the covers over my head, but the voices grew louder. The temperature plummeted. My breath hung in the air. Ice crystals formed on the window. A shadow shifted outside. Gathering courage, I looked. Frosty stood at the yard's edge, his grin impossibly wide, jagged, icy teeth glinting in the moonlight. His coal eyes glowed with malevolence. A reflection flickered beside me. Emily stood there, face expressionless. "Come play with us," she whispered, breath a cold mist. I recoiled. "Emily, what's happening?" She tilted her head, hair crackling with frost. "He can make us happy forever." Her skin was translucent, veins dark against the pallor. I bolted past her, heart racing, only to find Michael and Sarah blocking the hallway. Their eyes were black voids. "Stay with us," they intoned. Panic surged. I ran into the bathroom and locked the door. Whispers swirled around me, seeping through the cracks. From the window, I watched in horror as Frosty's body began to shift, his once solid form breaking apart into a swirling storm of snow and ice. His jagged grin hovered in the maelstrom, unblinking. "I have to end this," I whispered. Determined, I layered on clothes and slipped outside. The night was deathly quiet. The only sound, the crunch of snow beneath my boots. As I approached Frosty, or what he'd become, the cold intensified, each step heavier than the last. He loomed before me, a swirling vortex of snow and shadow. His eyes were dark tunnels drawing me in. The symbols on his hat pulsed with an eerie light. "Why are you doing this?" I demanded, voice barely audible. A hollow whisper emanated from the storm. "They are mine now. Join us, and you will never feel pain again." I reached for the hat. As my fingers touched it, an excruciating chill shot up my arm. Frost crept over my hand, crystallizing my skin. Agony unlike anything I'd ever felt. "Let go," he hissed, voice like cracking ice. Visions flooded my mind. Endless fields of snow, children frozen in place, eyes pleading. Summoning every ounce of strength, I gripped the hat tighter. Behind me, footsteps crunched rapidly. "Karen," my siblings cried, voices distorted, layered with Frosty's chilling tone. They moved stiffly, limbs jerking like marionettes. Faces pallid, lips blue, eyes devoid of humanity. "Stay with us forever," they whispered, reaching out with hands tipped in sharp icicles. Terror surged. I yanked the hat free, the symbols flaring brightly. The storm around Frosty intensified, snow whipping violently. Clutching the hat, I turned and ran toward the house. The front door wouldn't budge, sealed by a layer of ice. Desperate, I remembered the coal chute. Diving down, I slid into the basement, landing hard. Pain shot through my ankle, but I forced myself up. The whispers were inside now, echoing off the walls. "The fire," I gasped. I stumbled into the living room, dumping logs into the fireplace. My numb fingers fumbled with the matches. Finally, a flame caught, casting dancing shadows. "Karen!" A voice rasped behind me. I spun around. My siblings stood in the doorway, shadows twisting unnaturally around them. "Give it back," Michael growled. "Let us be whole," Sarah pleaded. Tears blurred my vision. "I'm sorry." With a final surge of will, I threw the hat into the fire. Flames roared, engulfing it. The silver symbols glowed fiercely before melting away. A scream tore through the house, a sound of pure rage and despair. Windows rattled, the ground shook. My siblings collapsed, shadows retreating from their bodies. The fire flickered, then settled. An eerie calm returned. "Emily, Michael, Sarah?" I rushed to them. They stirred, color slowly returning to their cheeks. "What happened?" Emily whispered. I pulled them into a tight embrace. "It's over. You're safe now." As relief washed over me, a faint scent of snow lingered in the air. Strange, given we were inside. The next morning, we told Mom and Dad everything. This time, they couldn't deny the fear in our eyes. "We'll get rid of that old snowman," Dad assured us. We watched as he scattered Frosty's remains, the once menacing figure reduced to unremarkable heaps. For a moment, peace returned. Laughter filled the house again. Warmth chased away the lingering chill. But that night, under the full moon's pale glow, a soft, deliberate knock echoed from the front door. My stomach tightened. I crept downstairs, each step heavier. Through the peephole, I saw nothing but the empty porch. Gathering courage, I opened the door a crack. There, resting on the doorstep, was the top hat. Pristine, silver symbols shimmering under the moonlight. A trail of icy footprints led from the hat across the yard into the depths of the woods. As I bolted the door, the wind inside shifted, carrying with it the faint sound of children's laughter, distant yet unmistakable. As I retreated, the faint crunch of snow echoed behind me, footsteps where no one stood. A cold breath brushed against my ear. "We'll be waiting, Karen." I slammed the door, heart pounding. The crisp, metallic scent of snow enveloped me. Frost began forming along the edges of the attic door upstairs. The whispers faded into the night, but I knew the silence wouldn't last. The hat is hidden now, locked away where no one will find it. But every winter, when the first snow falls, I feel it. The unblinking gaze of something waiting just beyond the trees. And sometimes, when the wind is just right, I hear the distant echo of children's laughter, carried on the cold air. And I know that some things lost in the snow never truly melt away.